A brilliant amputation specialist in 1840 London, tortured by the agony his patients endure, becomes obsessed with discovering a painkiller for the benefit of mankind. But he enters a downward spiral when experimenting with the drugs himself. That's the premise of the 1958 horror/medical drama Corridors of Blood, starring Boris Karloff and Christopher Lee. And it's the movie we're dusting off this week on Movie Bones.
For your information, gentlemen, this is a straightforward amputation at the lower extremity of the femur. And to you students, again I emphasize the absolute necessity for speed.
Well, it was a good day's work, Bolton, eh? You're getting faster all the time. Beats me how you do it.
No matter how fast I am, I still can't save them. That terrible agony.
Yes, most distressing, but alas, inevitable. You can't have operations without screams. Pain and the knife are inseparable.
I beg to differ, Mr. Blount. Some days surgery must and will be made painless.
You're not still fooling with that free dispensary of yours in 7 Dials. I can't understand why a distinguished surgeon of your ability can squander his valuable time prescribing castor oil and stomach pills for a group of miserable wretches.
And how else will those miserable wretches, as you call them, get any kind of medical attention? I really think that setting aside one afternoon a week is the very least that I can do.
You're spending more time than that, Bolton. On top of it all, there are your chemical experiments. If I were you, I should tread a little carefully. People are beginning to talk.
Well, let them talk. In the meantime, I'll do what I think is right.
Now, if you couldn't tell already, folks, that's the voice of the one and only Boris Karloff, taking a rare turn here at playing a good guy, Dr. Bolton. He's a brilliant doctor whose devotion to end the suffering of his patients in surgery, in spite of a hostile medical establishment, as you could hear there, combined with his self-experimentation in the criminal element his charity work inadvertently brings him into contact with, create a recipe for some serious trouble. And the movie is not what I would expected, Ryan. It wasn't what I expected based on the poster and the title, because it's like you were saying to me earlier, it's like the title and the poster are they're a little misleading, aren't they?
Yes. Super misleading. This is one of those things where, and I think this happens to a lot of the older films that we watch, is that it's almost like what they were trying to do was just give a title to it, something that kind of maybe sparked fear or dread or things like that. Like if you had a movie titled Corridors of Blood today, you're probably most likely going to get something along the lines of something very gory. This movie is not. And this movie's not, like, you could have done gore in its own way in that time period. You don't really get gore in this movie. Like, you do get some kind of, like, more graphic scenes. And I say that with there's some caveats there. But, Corridors of Blood, the title doesn't do it justice.
Yeah. You could, apply the title to the hospital in which he works, which is a place of a lot of, as you heard, the screaming and bloodletting in great quantities, in a medical establishment that doesn't really value or see the need to try and push for a more painless kind of treatment. So in that sense, it's like, okay, I kind of see what you're going for, but when you think about the movie's themes and the character work done by the leads, it really doesn't revolve around that as much as it's a motivator, but it's not what it's about. Yeah. And I think that I don't know if it's because they got Boris Karloff attached to it, and when that happened, they maybe thought, well, you only see him in these kind of movies where the titles are like this. It's kind of what I'm thinking is like there might be some psychology there. It's like we're just going to associate Boris Karloff because he's such a horror icon that we're just going to go ahead and call it that because that's what people expect when they see Boris Karloff, and they might not go to see it if you call it Springtime in Poppy Fields or something like that.
Yeah, and I can understand that to an extent.
What we actually get in the story is actually, even if you don't expect it, it actually is, it's kind of, I would say, grounded reality, kind of not horror, but actually just addiction-based drama, like a good guy trying to do the right thing and ends up getting caught up in forces that are outside of control due to addiction,
It's got some elements. I don't know if you were thinking about this as the movie was playing out, but it has very, very, very slight elements of a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type of story. And he comes up with this formula and he tests himself. Well, he gets addicted to the gas to an extent. Well, not to an extent. He gets addicted to the gas.
It's opium-based, yeah.
Yeah, it's opium-based. And there are times in the film where he's inhaling it and he becomes a different person. And I would say the different person part is his inhibitions. Is it inhibitions?
I wouldn't even say inhibitions. It's just like he's still himself in the sense that he sees himself as someone who's trying to do good, even when he's under the influence. It's just he doesn't remember what he's doing, and he's just out of it more, and it causes him to. Well, it's like the addiction cycle. It's like it wears you out, right?
Yes.
It grinds him down. So even his professional work during the daytime, when he's not trying to do like the experimentation stuff, suffers for it because it's like. Well, like real addiction, it'll do to you. It kills both sides of you. It's like whether you're using it and may seem functional on one level as long as you just taken a hit, but that functionality goes away very quickly and suddenly your whole life is thrown upside down. I would say it's almost like one could take the most bare bones essentials of what Jekyll and Hyde movie. If you look at Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde as just could be like a metaphor for other things. This could be something that a Jekyll and Hyde movie would be a metaphor for in the sense that you are creating a separate life for yourself. Even if you're trying to do good, you've created this other life for yourself and it's hurting you.
That's how you could look at the movie, the whole the Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing. And it's just, maybe this is just me complaining for the sake of complaining. But, this guy is a well-respected surgeon. He's trying to figure something out to help people and everything. And just the way that so many, especially these younger doctors who are in training, look at him with, not disdain, but mockery. I don't know. It didn't throw me out of the movie, but it just kind of annoyed me. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
That's how you're going to treat this dude? Like, he's actually trying to do something, which, part of that is just, trying to push him further and further over the edge. And I get that. But it was just, and I know, this is not even really a real critique of the movie. This is what annoyed me in the movie.
I think there is an element of truth in that because even though I didn't see that particular shade of it, it does reach one of the criticisms I had with some of the other characters who are supposedly the quote-unquote good characters around him, like his family members, his son, and I guess it's his daughter or daughter-in-law or the prospective daughter. I don't know. There's a girl involved. It's younger than, I don't know how she's related to him. I forget that. The point is there are these good people, his family members surrounding him, that are trying to support him, and yet they can see something's wrong, but they don't ever... He gives them a brief brush off of like, oh, everything's okay. And they, oh, okay, I'll just go away now. Even though nothing changes, but it takes him getting very deep in before they start actually taking steps. And it feels contrived. It's like this person you love is clearly falling apart in some way. And you're just going to say, you're not going to keep an extra eye on him. It's like, no, don't leave him alone. I almost wanted to say, remember the doctor in The Hideous Sun Demon said, he shouldn't be left alone. He knew not to leave someone in a kind of state that's bad like this. Can you imagine The Hideous Sun Demon having some wisdom for a movie like this? That's what kind of drove me nuts, is that it's like, you should not leave a person like this alone. If you care about him, why are you leaving him alone? So that it's the good characters, sort of in quotes, that gave me the biggest problem here.
I didn't really have just a whole bunch of problems with the movie. There were just like little things here and there that just made me kind of go, which might give way to like my ultimate feeling of the movie. Again, it's not a bad movie. The acting in this movie, by the way, in my opinion, phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
Like from top to bottom was just like, mwah, chef's kiss, really good. But, you had the hive of scum and villainy.
Very convincingly played. And I love those parts. Very interesting.
Now, these parts did intertwine. I want to make that clear. But I thought like some of that, I was like, man, I would like more screen time with them. And I felt like what they were doing was kind of, its own thing. And I thought that's interesting. The whole thing with the doctor and his family. And I thought that was really interesting. And then like you kind of like in the third act, you had this inspector that's thrown into it. That inspector was interesting. And I'm like, why has this guy not been here the whole entire time? This has been really interesting. So you see what I'm saying? It's just like, there was like a lot of like good ideas in this film that like could have potentially either been their own thing in their own way or expanded upon more. And it wasn't as expanded upon as I thought it would be. That does not mean that the stories weren't interesting. And it does not mean that the acting was, like we've already said, the acting was phenomenal from everybody.
Yeah. You mentioned the inspector and you mentioned, I forget who else, the inspector and who else? There was somebody else. What was it? The
you have the inspector, and then at the end of the movie, and then you have like the innkeeper, that guy who gets him his, who winds up helping him. And then the Christopher Lee's character is titled Resurrection Joe. And we don't really see a whole bunch of him, but it's Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
And I've never seen Christopher Lee in anything that he's bad in.
The one-legged man, where is he? I must help him.
We sent him away for a nice long rest, haven't we, Joe?
That's right, Governor. He's nice and peaceful now.
He's outlived his welcome. He needs looking after. And we make certain that what's left of him is found far enough away so as to have no connection with this place.
No need to worry, Governor. It'll all be taken care of, nice and tight.
Yeah, I mean, what Christopher Lee does here, it's like you heard him, he's the softer spoken one in the audio clips there. It just shows you what future he has in store for him. I mean, he was one of the great Hammer horror film actors from the 60s. So to see him actually and Boris Karloff together, who was from a previous generation of horror icons, if you're in the 60s, you're getting the old and the new right here, even if you don't know that Christopher Lee's going to take off like he did. But I thought that was fascinating too. But you can see why there's such icons in this movie. And like you said, their performances really do, among the whole cast even, they stood out to me as being really, really excellent in their own rights. Even though that Lee doesn't have a whole lot to do, he does have important things to do, but he's not a presence throughout the entire movie. But he's so great in what he does too.
If they would have made him a little bit more, and the story would have been just that much better.
Yeah, there's another character. Do you remember the innkeeper's daughter?
Yes.
They actually gave her lines at some point, giving her some indication of, this is wrong. I'm feeling empathy for the victim you're making out of this good doctor. And they don't do anything with that. And it just kind of highlights what you said, is like there's these side characters that could have added complication. There's these threads that were never woven in fully. It's just like they're there as ideas. And when you look at the overall picture of the story, it's almost too straightforward. You know what I'm saying? It's too simplistically done. It's competent. It's okay at what it does. But you see that there could be some more complicating factors that would really ratchet up the level of interest for the audience. And it's like, man, this could have been so much more even, you know?
Yeah, this movie is around an hour and 26 minutes long.
That's short, actually.
Yeah, it's short. This is the type of movie that if you remade it today and you kept all the core scenes in the movie, so you kept a lot of what's happening, and then you added maybe like another 45 minutes to it, maybe another hour to it, and you expand upon all these roles, I'm telling you, you're getting a phenomenal film.
Oh yeah,
you're getting a phenomenal film.
Yeah, the
pieces are here, the acting's well done. It just there needs to be more of it. Well, I do have my one other final little issue with this movie, and it's not this movie's particular fault. The other issue that I have with this movie is that it reminded me a lot of Body Snatchers, which is another movie where in that movie, Boris Karloff plays the character kind of that Christopher Lee played in this movie in his own way.
And there's a film that was titled correctly, by the way.
Yeah, and so for those of you that have watched it, that movie is about the slow descent into madness because of medical research that our main character has to deal with. Even as the main character in the Body Snatchers passes away eventually, which, spoiler alert, Boris Karloff's character does the same thing. He passes off the work to his protege, and it ends on a happier note where his son actually seems like he's figured out the formula, and they're able to perform the surgery and everything. But he passes it off. You know, both movies end a little bit differently, but they have that same kind of sequence of events. You're trying to do what you're doing. People catch on to it. They're not really fans of it. But you still want to keep that research up. And because you're trying to keep that research up, what happens is the slow descent into madness. You deal with the shady underworld of society to get you your medical supplies. That's what happens in both those films. And as I was watching the film, I was not thrown off of the film, but I was like, this reminds me a lot of that. And we gave it the highest praise, right? Even if we didn't, I thought it was a phenomenal film. Watching Body Snatchers first, I came away from this movie going, if I had to pick between the two, I'd pick Body Snatchers.
I suppose if you look at it that way, yeah, it's like you could say, well, what do I need this one for? And I do want to take a moment out just to give a little bit more praise for this movie. For one thing in particular is that the atmosphere, it does at least when it comes to certain things, like those amputation scenes, by the way, those scenes, I was cringing in my seat, when they were doing those. That was really well, it was almost too well done in a way. It really did have the effect it needed to have. But man, it's like, I will give it the movie props for that. It did a really good job creating a sense of the natural horror of amputation, of the motivating force behind the Dr. Bolton's, his whole reason for doing what he's doing. And so you really understand that in one sense. And the scene with the little girl being operated on, when he's already suffering from the effects of the drugs, that had me on pins and needles. I think there are reasons to watch this film, even in addition to you can watch The Body Snatcher and you can watch this film and still get enough out of it either way.
I agree with that.
I think I can guess where you land on it, but go ahead and tell me and see if I'm wrong.
No, I want you to guess real quick.
Okay, I think I think like me, you think it belongs in a museum.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think it belongs in a museum.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Honestly, even if the story was poor, which usually does not lead to this happening, but if the story was terrible, the acting alone does it justice. And that's one of the reasons why I think it's a great thing. Again, belongs in a museum. Boris Karloff and Christopher Lee on the screen at the same exact time. For those of us, there's a lot more of us right now that are going to be bigger fans of Christopher Lee, which, for a variety of good reasons.
Yeah, if he came into it through Lord of the Rings or whatever.
Yeah, and it's just seeing where he gets his start at. Boris Karloff, have I watched a movie yet with Boris Karloff in it that just I absolutely hated?
He has never let me down, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
He's never let me down. His part is always worth watching. I've always found that, even in something like The Raven, which it's just which is more niche, definitely niche if you like it at all.
And then on top of that, the premise itself is interesting. This is a real thing, and it makes sense that they made a story out of it, but it's a real thing that actually happened. You had to get to a point where, and this is not based on a true story, but what I'm saying is it's a real thing that happened in that, there's a time in the world where, we were trying to figure out anesthesia.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting topic because it's hey, we don't really have movies like that anymore, especially ones that are, geared toward being more horror-like or thriller-like. And I thought that was a really interesting thing because he's trying to do good.
I do wonder about the aspect of the story, if it was a real thing or not, whether or not there was that much resistance to the idea of anesthesia because of some kind of moral. It almost felt like it was a moral principle that the people who were dissenting against him it was these things must go together. Pain and the knife, they go together. And he even dreams it too. It's but was it almost seen like a religious thing where pain and suffering are seen as redemptive and therefore that it's part of healing, perhaps? Was that a thing?
I don't know. I could see it being something that's because it's, all new sciences are generally, laughed at first anyways. I mean, we had Galileo, he was rejected by society at first. The same thing with Isaac Newton, figures out gravity and people are so we do see it quite a bit in real life. So, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if, people looked at something like anesthesia and was nah, it's not something that can actually happen. But it leads me back to saying there's a lot to this movie that I think anybody should sit down and watch it. It's for free on Tubi. So, there you go. So it belongs in a museum.
So now is the time we would like to remind the listening audience out there that if you're having a good time listening to Ryan and I, just shoot the breeze about these movies and, watch them along with us, we do encourage you to please subscribe, comment, and of course, follow us on your podcast purveyor of choice because we like having company. And give us those recommendations, folks. We want to hear what you want to hear. If you have a movie that's on Tubi that's free available, please do let us know that, that's something you'd like to see. So in any case, next week we have a film that it could be somewhat timely. I mean, it's certainly, I know because it's a Frank Capra film, it's going to be aspirational in its tone, which I think we all could use right now, especially as it touches on politics. It's always a depressing subject, but now so more than ever, it seems. So in any case, tell the folks out there what we've got next week, if the audience hasn't already figured it out.
I am excited about this movie. This is one of my favorite actors in it. It is Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and it is directed by Frank Capra, starring Jimmy Stewart. Jimmy Stewart, he's one of my favorites. Gene Auther and Claude Rains.
Claude Rains, the Invisible Man.
Yes. Tubi says a native former youth leader fights false accusations and corruption from the political machine that engineered his appointments to the U.S. Senate. I am going to tell you this. I don't care if this movie's bad or not. I'm going to tell you that Jimmy Stewart is about to James Stewart himself. I actually think he's really popular for this film. Other than
have you seen this one before? Because I have seen this one before.
I have not seen this one before, and that's why I'm excited about it.
Okay, well, I really can't wait to hear it then.
I've been meaning to, I've always wanted to watch it. It's just, I came across it on Tubi, so I've been excited.
Like, Anna and I have different opinions about it. I like it, and she's not as keen on it. So, but in any case, that'll be next week's film. Hope you guys join us for watching it. And as of course, always, keep following along. And we love you guys out there. And Ryan, I'll see you next week. And folks, we'll see you next week. Okay?
See you next week.
See you next week.
Pain and the knife are in step. Pain.
No. You're wrong. You're wrong.
Pain